morning. This is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV, brought to you by the Center for Constitutional Governance. I am Kwagala, your host. Today, we reflect on the accountability function of Parliament by spotlighting the operations of the Public Accounts Committee as a tool for combating corruption in government. I am now joined by a distinguished panel of personalities who I now have the pleasure and the honor to introduce to you, our dear viewers, to discuss today's topic. Let me start with my immediate left. He's a lawyer and a former student guild leader at the Uganda Christian University, where he has previously served as a guild speaker. You're most welcome to the program, Mr. Bayern. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you so much, Mr. Moderator. Hello, viewers. I'm glad to be here.
Thank you, Bayern, for joining us. Next to Bayern is Honourable Paul Mwiru. He's a former legislator representing Jinja East constituency in Parliament. Honourable, you're most welcome. Say hello to the viewers.
Hello, viewers. I'm glad to be here. Thank you. I wish you nice deliberations.
Thank you, Honourable. Next to Honourable is the resplendent Winnie Mugambwa, Winfred. She's the Executive Director for Rights for Her, a civil society organization focused on women empowerment, and she's a regular on this platform. You're most welcome to the program, Winnie. Say hello to the viewers.
Thank you so much, Isaac. Good morning, viewers. I also want to thank Civic Space for always hosting us and creating this safe space where we air our views.
Thank you, Wendy, for joining us. And of course, from Parliament, the man that is manning our watchdog, there is Mr. Apollo Tusiime. He's the General Secretary for the Uganda Parliamentary Association. Apollo, you're most welcome to the program. Say hello to the viewers.
It's my pleasure to join the panel this morning. Good morning, our viewers, and greetings from the Uganda Parliamentary Press Association. As usual, I always start with a disclaimer. We are not employees of Parliament. We work for private media, but we are accredited to cover Parliament on a daily basis. Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Thank you, sir. We are glad to have you. Honourable, let me start with you by saying that it is an established fact, and I think it can also garner the general acceptance of this platform and the wider public, that corruption continues to blight the national development of our country. But I want to ask so that the viewer out there gets to understand the history, the constitutional history, rationale, and also the workings of the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. What is this organ of Parliament all about? Just you add some context for the benefit of the viewer, even as we get started into the discussion.
Well, thank you, Isaac. I think this emanates from the constitutional provisions that whenever a Ugandan pays tax, the tax goes to the consolidated fund. And when the tax goes to the consolidated fund, the Constitution requires that actually there must be accountability around the power and policy on how government works. When money goes in the constituted fund, it is a requirement that money cannot leave the constituted fund through the budgeting process. That's why we have the budget, to see that there is a vote for every item, every money, and through the Appropriation Act, the money is voted through the budget. And when the money is voted through the budget, now the money goes to the accounting officers. Our Constitution under Article 163 creates the Office of the Auditor General, which audits every money which is voted out of the consolidated fund. And under Article 164, it creates a duty to whoever receives public funds to actual account, whether you are in office or you are outside office. That's the constitutional provision. But there are subsidiary legislations which have been made out of the Constitution. But before you go there, the Constitution under Article 90, it empowers the committees of Parliament. It establishes the committees of Parliament in doing its work of ensuring that there is accountability, to the extent that Parliament has the powers of the High Court insofar as inviting witnesses, summoning witnesses to appear before the committee to respond to issues raised arising out of Article 164 on accountability. But there are other subsidiary legislations which were created to reinforce or to operationalize the articles in the Constitution which creates the Constituent Fund and which allows the accountability, like the Public Finance Management Act. And then also there were what we call the Treasury Accounting Instructions. The Treasury Accounting Instructions are used by civil servants to the extent that when money is given out to an activity officer, he or she must account for that money within 30 days from the date of receipt of money. You must either show that the money was expended as budgeted, and that's why, to some extent, I've been seeing the debate. You see, when you receive public money on your personal account, it becomes your account becomes a public account. You cannot say that you see, you can't ask me for my banks. I've seen people trying to do that. But like this money where people said, so and so received money, so and so received money on someone's account. Once you allow money to go onto your personal account, then the law presumes that now it is a public account because you have received public money. In our setting, there is what we call the accountability sector in Uganda. The accountability sector is headed by the Ministry of Ethics and Integrity. It's supposed to bring together all organs of the state and all other organizations to bring the people who are in the accountability sector. There's Parliament under the accountability committees of COSASE, the central government, that is PAC. Then there is local government. Then there also the government assurance in a way. Those are the committees from Parliament. There is the IGG, there is police, there is the Auditor General. That forms the accountability sector, which in any way they are supposed to synchronize, because as a result of what they do, there has always been a debate. Like, you know, there's what we call the PAC, the East African Public Accounts Committee, borrowing best practices in other countries. They have actually brought together, now like there's what we call the Accountability Kenya, because it was found out that there were very many organs or institutions of government claiming to be investigating corruption, and at some point they were even covering the truth more than they would reveal the truth because of maladministration. Maladministration is where a function is vested in an organ of the state, and all what they do is to not to frustrate the investigators. People sit on the truth. So that's why you realize that in some country they created a word called Accountability Kenya. It is a one-stop center that once a budget has been passed out, that once an audit report comes out, the accountability sector sits and the Accountability Kenya sits and say, look, this is the report. This institution takes every direction, that there's no crisscrossing. You understand? But here in Uganda, I've seen that where they say, investigate this sector, the sector say, no, the other organ has started. The other institution is doing ABCD. So at the end of the day, that is the framework. But people need to understand the problem, actually. To me now, out of my experience, people no longer want to see people investigating. They want two things: who is in the prison and how much has been recovered. Exactly. They're no longer interested in the show that people have. At the end of the day, People want to know who is in the prison because has stolen public money, how much has been recovered. Then the biggest problem, which is bigger than even corruption, is maladministration. You understand? The institutions of IGG, the institution of PAP, those accountability committees, the police, not looking like they're shortchanging
The citizen.
the citizen. And in some jurisdiction, actually, maladministration is more punishable than even corruption itself, because you are the gatekeeper. You understand? If it's an office of Dr. General, what audit report are you bringing out? Or you are bringing out small things in the report. You understand? And not leaving out the real accountability issues as they're actually missing. So I thought I need to give that back so people know when you talk about, people look at our PAC, but we should be evaluating the accountability sector. Not leaving out most of the non-governmental. Actually, there are many organizations which claim to be fighting corruption, which are not government, but at one time we were evaluating that they're also receiving a lot of money to help in fight of corruption, and that actually, even if that money was just given back to government.
Are they receiving public funds or from external donors?
They receive from external, but you see, some of them it is, there's what we call the budget support and project support. Some would receive as part of what is going to be fighting corruption as their budget. Then the question was, how come that even when they receive also in their budgets, the corruption is not going anywhere? Like myself, at one time, we used to keep on receiving support as Public Accounts Committee. They would give you a very huge photocopying machine, but you have to buy the spares from them. That when it breaks down, you have to go to them.
Thank you, Honourable, for laying out that background. We can build on that even as we kickstart the thrust of the discussion. So I'm going to come to you, Winfred. As a citizen, are you really satisfied with the performance of the Public Accounts Committee as our, chief accountability watchdog? As the citizens, when we examine the performance of the Public Accounts Committee, especially for the last 3 also parliaments, are you satisfied that this is an organ of parliament that can give you confidence that your monies, the taxes that you pay, are being put to proper use, and if there are any issues, then also they have the capacity to bring the people that have been adversely implicated to book?
Thank you so much, Isaac. And I'll say that I am satisfied to some extent, and to some extent I am not. When you look at the report of 2022, you'll see that, of course, they are bringing out the issues, considering the report of the Auditor General. You'll see that they'll analyze the report very well, they will review it, analyze it very well, and they'll bring out issues. They'll bring openly the issues around. That is where I'm saying that I am satisfied to some extent and not to another extent. I don't want to discredit their work, because at least I would say, yes, they are doing something. But again, along the way as they walk, they fall into the dish, or they go silent, or I don't know. Maybe let me give an example. They are not giving an example. In their report, they openly, in 2022, they openly talked about corruption. Yes? They even openly, like from the Auditor's General, when he brought it out that corruption is coming from the high-level persons. Yes? It was really clear. They brought out, me as a citizen, I look at what really affects me. They brought out corruption in a education sector, corruption in the health sector, misuse of funds in the public infrastructure and planning, the irregularities in procurement. That all affects me as a citizen. Yes, and that gives them credit on how they are doing the work around there, bringing out, like, they are trying to be like transparent, but then when it comes to to follow up because they give recommendations. And that is where the problem is. And that is why Honourable said people now want to see what are the results, tangible results. We have had, they've recommended, and when you read the recommendations they've put, they're really good recommendations. If really the systems were proper for implementations. But when it comes to, they recommend. But personally, I feel there is a gap around follow-up. Yes, because when you recommend, you've talked about corruption and you're recommending to Minister of, let me say, Minister of Education in 2022, you recommended, you emphasized that yes, the Auditor General is talking about issues around infrastructures in school not being built, issues around inefficient accountability, and then in 2023, that recommendation comes in 2022. In 2023, the same recommendation comes around school. Then again in 2023, you talk about infrastructures that are not built, the roads and everything. Yes? And then 2023, you're giving the same report, you're emphasizing the same report and then giving recommendations around there. They only say, okay, there is slight, they told us there is problems of accountability, and then that is 2020, but there is a slight improvement in around transparency. Me as an ordinary citizen, what do I gain in that? What do I gain in recommendations? Yes? Yes, there is a lot of public involvement in speaking about transparency, about accountability, but still, where is the follow-up? When corruption has been talked about, let me give an example of they've talked about about recruitment around what? Around the parliament ghost employees, and it has been appearing in all reports. Yes, to me I feel like I said, I would say it's a 50-50. It goes up to somewhere and stops there. Does it help me as a person? What does it help to inform me that yes, the government bodies, the people in health are not buying adequate medication? Yes, every year is coming and then nothing is changing. It means that there's also an efficiency in their implementation, in their work. There is a gap, there's something missing for it to benefit that until the last citizen. Yes. And then another thing is we say that there is decentralization of information and everything in the country, but again, me as a citizen, as a local citizen down there, I feel I'm now speaking on I'm speaking as a citizen because our country is diverse. Yes, how all these sessions are held, how the reports are put out there. How are they really involving all the citizens? If they really want even support from the citizen, how are they involving that illiterate down there? Since all reports are put out in one language, yes? So there is still a lot of work needed to be done. And there is still, I feel there is need to revise their mandate, and it goes beyond only recommendation. You can't say that Winfred is not eating food and I recommend you give her food and you stop there and you tell the LC, I recommend you help these people around like Winfred who are in your area who are not eating food, and then you walk away. Have you really helped Winfred? No. I will not still eat the same day. People are lacking drugs in hospitals. You see the face now. You see the face in 2024. In hospitals, there are no drugs. Kampala, you look at the roads and see schools. Yesterday there was a school there, it was on NTV. They showed us a school, it is in, I think it was in the east, where there was a heavy rains and they took off. It's even a government school, the roofs all went off, and school is starting, and some schools have started, but most schools are opening on Monday. But up to now, all the infrastructures, all the buildings, there were like 3 buildings. There are no roofs yet. Yet the children, the pupils are coming back on one. It was a primary school. They are coming back on Monday. This is 2024. But the PAC always, the Auditor General puts out the report. The PAC also recommends, and the government is supposed, when they recommend, the government is supposed to give a report. Oh, what they've done within 6 months, and now we are in 2024, but still the same issues are coming up. The same issues. We talk about corruption. 2025, I think, is the year we have talked about. Evidence has come out. Yes, maybe the citizens are lying about the evidences they are putting. They're like their speakers saying we are not answerable to things on social media. But as bodies like as the Auditor General or PAC, what interests have they even put? What efforts have they put there to say that, okay, these are citizens that have gotten this, they've gotten the courage to speak about corruption this far. They have brought evidences. Can we try and scrutinize these evidences they are bringing? Can we try and find out whether the evidences are true? So that, because remember, they have to ensure that taxpayers' money gives us value. Me as a taxpayer, what have they done? So as much as they are doing something, in fact, I would say fifth have given them a lot, because the end results must be there. Me as a citizen is where I benefit. Women, I give in my contribution because I'm a woman, I speak for women, I work for women. And when we look at all these things, education, roads, schools, mostly it is the woman and the girl who are mostly affected. So they have done a good work in reporting, telling us about the issues, but so what? So what? What about those reports?
Thank you, Winfred, for your views. I'll come back to you. Apollo, let me bring you in. As the press, you've done quite a commendable job, I should say, by widely reporting on the mandate of Parliament and specifically PAC, but also on the inner workings of that organ. But we want to understand, why is there no correlation between that mandate vis-a-vis the results? The results seem to be intangible. From a journalistic point of view, what could be the obstacles that straddle the course between, implementing effectively the mandate of that organ and then realizing the fruits?
Thank you so much, Isaac, and I must appreciate the submission from the Honourable Mwiru, highlighting the process of accountability, and it gives us that background from where we can start to debate this particular issue. I also must appreciate that Parliament accountability committees are not, there are 4, like he said. It's not only one. There is PAC Central, there is PAC Local Government, there is COSASE, a Committee on Statutory Assets and State Enterprises. Then there is Government Assurance. So there are 4 committees of Parliament which are charged with this component of accountability. And they all majorly rely on audit reports from the Office of the Auditor General. So I also appreciate the work they have done. We have seen positives from those committees. You can recall the handshake, the 6 billion handshake. You can recall the bank probe, Bank of Uganda probe. There are reports.
Chogam?
Yes, the Chogam report. So the audits, some of the audit queries are concluded, but many others, I must state it, many others remain unattended to, remain unprocessed.
Why is that the case?
Yes, there is a huge backlog of queries that are raised in the Auditor General's report every financial year that are left out. For instance, I will tell you that the current Parliamentary Accounts Committee Central, they have on their table, as we speak, 133 queries from the Auditor General's office. they have only managed to work on 30, no, on 20, and now we have, isn't it like 5 weeks to the end of the financial year, and then another audit cycle will bring in new or fresh audits that these committees will handle, and that's only one committee of Parliament, the Parliamentary Accounts Committee. So there is a huge backlog. There is a huge backlog of queries that must be worked on, and the committee has to exhaust many procedures. They have to interface with witnesses. They have to prepare a report, and then the report will always have to struggle to find a place on the order paper. You remember very well, and all of you can recall what happened with the Uganda Airlines report. It was concluded. The process of the committee at that time, the COSASE, was led by the current leader of opposition, Honourable J.O. They processed the query. They concluded, they wrote a report, but the report was not given space on the order paper. So you can imagine all the monies that was put in that process, but nothing will, no one will ever know what actually there won't be any results from that. Of course, they had made very good recommendations in that report. At least we somehow got it. And
did you publish those?
Of course, if it's not debated, you may not be officially out for public consumption. But yes, some papers really published it. I think one of the recommendations were that the executive director for Uganda Airlines should be sacked, I remember, but well, that's where it stopped. That's where it ended. It was not given space on the order paper. So what I'm saying is that there are many challenges along the audit cycle. Whereas the the accountability committees of Parliament can do their work, also political interference can be a challenge. You may do all the work and you bring out the evidence, you make good recommendations, but then, like Honourable Win here said, the results will not be what? The results will be nowhere. Because Honourable Mwiru and all others know that after a report is written by the committee, it must be brought to the plenary and then debated. Then afterwards, the minister responsible, you
The Minister of Finance is
yes,
supposed to issue treasury memoranda.
I think that includes the action.
But treasury memoranda is the action taken.
Yeah, action taken
on the recommendation adopted by Parliament.
Yeah.
Then the Auditor General is supposed to re-audit
again
the treasury memoranda to see whether the recommendations of Parliament have been acted on. That's what we call the audit cycle.
Yes.
How it ends. Yes.
So if the committees make good reports and with good recommendations, and the reports do not find space on the order paper, then that is the end.
So it's corruption through corruption.
Yes. And even if you look at the audit cycle, how it is structured in the law, all the other processes that come first are given timelines. They are given timelines. But when they come to when the report is debated and sent to the minister responsible, there are no timelines. And even there are no timelines. So there's they may say we will bring it, we'll bring it, and it will end there. So I think that is one thing our policy makers should look into also. If there were timelines, possibly the timelines would force the minister responsible to take action within that time frame. So there are no timelines on that. But besides the political interference I have talked about, you cannot also limit that interference to the executive, because what we are talking about now is the executive not taking action. Even in the administration at Parliament, somehow, and then you will bear me witness, somehow the administration of Parliament also interferes with the works of committees. I can also take you back to the issue of the Uganda Airlines, the probe on Uganda Airlines. For instance, who would then give space? For the report on the order paper? It is the administrators, the administration of Parliament. But you remember what happened? John Senyi did what he could do best, but he was told this report will not be debated because of this and that. So it is, as we look at the effectiveness of the parliamentary accountability committees, we should not forget to also look at the environment they operate in. Even the staffing of those committees, I talked about the many queries that the backlog that is always before these committees. But the members of parliament on the committees, yes, there are many, but how many sit? Paul Mwiru will tell you that a committee of 30, there are some are 30, some are 35 or 40. But you'll find that in every committee sitting, you have only 10 or 8 members who sit to debate, to scrutinize the vote claims.
Thank you, Mr. Apollo, for your views. Let me bring in Bayern before we take a break. Bayern, from a young leader's perspective, and also taking into consideration the challenges that the other panelists here have highlighted, do you think it is time to rethink the accountability model of Parliament, or as a country as a whole?
Thank you so much, Isaac. Absolutely, yes. I would start by answering your question in affirmative. Absolutely, yes, we need to rethink the structure of governance, that is one. But secondly, the structure of accountability that we apply in this governance. Because just like what the gentleman was trying to say, we have to give fair credit to an entity, and specifically an organization like PAC, a committee like PAC, for they operate in one of the most difficult circumstances. We cannot put it out of isolation that the scape of governance that we have is one that does not respect the rule of law, and I can repeat this over and over. The rule of law is one that the government does not respect. And you have people that come to try to enforce accountability when they know the end process of that they are trying to do, even at the start. You know that the executive has continuously and showed active effort to downplay or even to show that Parliament is one that does not have anything that they can check or balance in the principle of checks and balances. So you find that for you to be on that committee and you initiate a process of accountability and even reach where they reach, you give them fair credit. Because the executive has showed us, one, that you as Parliament will sit, pass through the proper processes, censure a minister, and the minister will remain in cabinet and even be reappointed in the next cabinet. That is one. But secondly, they have showed you that you can even sit as a committee, debate or even invite witnesses as you want, table a report, and recommendations will not be taken up. Just as a case in point, the Bank of Uganda report, we all saw that we considered it one of the good reports that have ever come out of such committees. The committee had various recommendations, such as one, arrest the directors and secretary of Bank of Uganda that were involved in the fraudulent sale of those institutions that they had sold, selling an institution on WhatsApp. But ultimately, if you go back and see how many recommendations were enforced in such a report, you will be shocked and embarrassed for anyone who is currently sitting on such a committee and trying to hold government accountable, because they have showed you in active, blatant manners that we are not going to respect anything that comes out of such a committee. So, in essence, my point is that we have to give fair credit to the people that are still seated there doing that work, trying to hold up the law as it is as it established in the structure of governance that we have. But ultimately, for me, I think we need to rethink the structure of accountability, but also secondly, we need to rethink the structure of governance. Because for me, when I think about the whole process and the problem, I see that the problem is a multi-party democracy. You see, and probably what Honourable Paul left out in his introduction remarks is that PAC, the history of PAC comes with parliamentary democracies, whereby, and that is why you see in the British system of parliament, you will find, or even where it has been entrenched and applied, you will find that PAC is always led by opposition members of parliament. And that is why the leader of opposition and all that structure has special status in such governance where it has been established. So you have an opposition which is trying to tell the executive what to do. When even a full parliament, when it sits, it cannot tell the executive what to do or hold them in check as they are supposed to be doing. So it brings a whole bigger problem of respect of the recommendations that come out of those committees. But I want us to also take a look at one major thing that I think is the cause of this problem, which is the quality of members of parliament that we have. I think it's also one that we should inquire into. You have, and I think in the recent times, I will not use examples, but we all know the people that are making it to that house. Now, in essence, having known the people that are making it into that house, you have an Auditor General's report, which is always bulky. It's always very bulky, and I think all of us can attest to it. It's always very many pages because it has an audit of a whole financial year. You have mostly language of auditing. You have accounting and auditing. So some of these members of parliament, it won't make sense. And then when they skip committees, just like he has said, they are 30, but 8 will always make appearance, is because they do not, it doesn't make sense to them. I go there to do what? So you find that you create, and remember the space in those committees is divided in a way that political parties should be represented and mostly opposition. So you find that if a person made it to that parliament, and if we must put it into context, I must take myself back to when I was in a senior 6 leaver, which is the quality of, which is the bare minimum requirement for you to make it to parliament. If I would understand audit reports, if I would understand audit queries, if I would understand accounting and such practices, which are a mandatory requirement for you to be in that house. Not, of course, notwithstanding the efforts that Parliament gives into orientation and all these other business that goes on for you to catch up to speed. But I think for me too, one, disrespect of the law or not wanting to respect the basic fundamentals of the rule of law, which principles are a cornerstone to such good public governance. But secondly, the quality of members we bring to Parliament are one of the 2 reasons that are a bigger problem in the accountability issue that we try to discuss today. Thank you so
They
much.
go together, the quality of MPs and the quality of the voters.
Honourable has qualified this.
Absolutely.
Because biologically, the chromosomal numbers, the cow gives birth to a cow. It can't give birth to a goat because the chromosomal numbers don't match.
Absolutely.
So the leaders reflect the society.
Focus on Parliament now takes a short break. When we return, we continue the discussion by evaluating the performance of the Public Accounts Committee. See you back shortly.
Digital rights are those human rights and legal rights that allow individuals to access, use, create and publish digital media or to access and use computers, other electronic devices and telecommunication networks. Digital rights include a right to freedom of expression, information and communication through technology, a right to privacy and data protection, a right to credit for personal works, a right to universal and equal digital access, a right to identity, a right to anonymity, a right to be forgotten, and a right for protection of minors, among others. The state's digital rights are frequently violated through various unfair actions, for example, blockage of websites and social networks, theft of credentials, unauthorized use of people's data for personal gain, privacy intrusion, online censorship, arrests and intimidation of online users, internet blockages, and the proliferation of laws and regulations that undermine the potential of technology to drive social, economic, and political development worldwide. It is hence every citizen's responsibility to respect rights of other digital users and to speak out or report to the responsible parties when one's rights are violated.
Welcome back. In this segment of Focus on Parliament, we continue to appraise the performance of the Public Accounts Committee as an organ of Parliament that is responsible for accountability issues with respect to public funds. Honourable, I'm starting with you once again, and I want us to interrogate the relationship between the mandate of the Public Accounts Committee and the phenomenon of politics. Because by law, the leadership of the Public Accounts Committee is taken by the opposition. And I think the rationale is to promote independence and also a semblance of impartiality in the processes. But increasingly, we have also seen reports emerge from Parliament that some members of the opposition are compromised, to, I think, let some people off the hook, which, of course, it has an adverse resultant effect because that means that the taxpayer is not getting value for their money. So, as a person that has been at the heart of these processes, and especially as a member of the opposition, what is your perspective about this?
First, I think people speak out of, maybe they don't know. Actually, maybe let me, in the interest of time, actually people don't pay attention to the rules. Even when you say that the committee is opposition, in terms of the numerical strength, it is NRM. I will give an example. We did the OPM report where we made the recommendations. And members, and you said that they require, you must have a third of the members to sign a report. And what did they do? They mobilized their members. And I say we must make compromise on the following recommendation. Don't involve the president, don't involve the first lady, when you involve them, we shall not sign. So we're stuck. We're writing a report. To the effect that if we didn't make some compromises on that, they will not sign. And there would be no debate at all. So what did we do? We had also to have a retreat meeting as opposition. Then we said that, okay, let's facilitate Honourable Sewungu to write a minority report on this issue. Because there's no way chair can write a minority as the chair of a committee. So we said, okay, with these recommendations, for purpose of even carrying the report to the floor, you understand? We are ceding, we are toning down on these recommendations, but we have to make sure that Honourable Sewungu writes a minority so that it comes and is debated on the floor of Parliament. That's the other aspect. Two, when you see like this issue of the staffing you talked about, if you go to other jurisdictions, a committee of like PAC has 10 clerks. Meaning that today, if you conduct a meeting, a clerk who sat into the report in the meeting of today doesn't sit in unless he has produced a draft report. You understand? Meaning that because according to the rules, it is the clerks who draft reports for the chair, for the technical wing. So if you have one clerk sitting in day out for this report, that means that they will never produce draft reports. You understand? Though, of course, the other issue which is very critical, there was the chair. And of course, you would see machinations by members. Try to say that, you know, this one is my constituency, this one is my relative, this one. So I told them, you people, if everybody is your relative, if everybody is your constituent, do you go and make a resolution that you're going to cheat the public as you come? So those issues also there, to the extent that even when the chairman maybe does accept them, you would see the demobilization. He told you the numbers of attendance. They would want the chairman to fail to have quorum to proceed with the committee. You would see all of those fights, they're always there. Some, yes, might be related to the people, but you see, to me, as a leader of a committee, that has nothing to do. Because I also take oath when I'm becoming member of parliament and I'm serving. But why I may not believe in some of those issues, you see, Auditor General's report brings out all these issues. To the extent that even if someone went and picked money from an accounting officer, it may not have any impact on the report. Because when people are reporting on the report, you report on every issue. You understand? And you state the way the report is written, you state the observation, and you make the recommendation on what has been there. And that's why I kept on telling people that I would have an entry meeting where I would inform the accounting officers that we don't send for people money. If you deal with them and they cheat you for that, that's your business. So if you don't find me and they say you gave someone money, but my recommendation is biting, because from the facts, there is nothing a member who has taken money can do. But even then, they don't even turn up in the report writing. You have been in the committee of you are sure. They are saying unaccounted for funds. If someone has not accounted. So if you take money, instead of refunding them, if you give to a member, you understand? It is your business. That's why I can, without any fear of contradiction, if people can make those, but if you go to the report, which has been written, the recommendation are always the same as per. There was that endeavor, I think it was the ninth parliament, when a committee brought a recommendation that we caution them, we forgive them. We rejected it on the onset, on the floor. We said, but you see, you have caught and observed. This will not account for money. Then how do we caution them? You understand? It didn't even carry. And actually, I remember the leader of opposition stood up and told actually saw the indulgence of the speaker that we are withdrawing this report. You understand? Because you see also the nature of that if someone is a chair, the head of opposition has no power to tell him to read through the report before it is tabled. Because it's a committee report, and the decision of the majority of the members, what carries the report. Those issues are there. To me, they would form part of the maladministration I was talking about. That the many people focus on corruption. But the gatekeeper, you understand, people don't focus on the gatekeeper. If they are they actually timelines. Actually, according to the Constitution, the PAC is supposed to investigate those reports within a period of 6 months. You understand? So in terms of review, the opposition should, either the recruitment should be that there must be particular staff recruited for PAC. So that we have the numbers, so they can deal with the backlog. But there's nothing they can do on the backlog. When you have one killer, of course they do them intentionally. But every financial report comes, you have over 14 or 15 votes. It is not practical that you'll be there, yet they normally sit 3 days. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. And some chairs stretch up to maybe Monday. So those who try, but members will be complaining. They say we are going to the constituency on Friday. We shall return on Monday. So we're not working on Monday, we're not working on Friday. So at the end of the then also the other issue, because it would take like the chair to become like a staff of parliament. Because also it goes back to I saw the one of the judge complain about the quality of the English spoken by some people. Even us, the question of the quality of the staff. Because they would write for you a draft.
The technical
Yeah, you read the English. You say, no, I cannot go to read this. So you have to get back to the computer to paraphrase and make it in the correct context to be submitted. So there are a number of things. Actually, the audit must also go on the staffing. Because you see, someone can wait for your report. And I saw someone, that's why I see they are very good clerks in the house. I saw the speaker now hijacking some. Now they form part of our staff. Those who are very good. So there are a lot of issues there which need to actually be addressed. I think it should inform the structuring of the accountability committee. When it comes to staffing, they should be participating. Because now the chair relies on the clerk. If you want to conduct a session, you can even write to the clerk, asking for a clerk, and then they say, no, we have no staff, you wait, we shall inform you. Now, like in this, actually, then the other issue, lastly, I am of the view that since the budget is voted by, you vote out money by an act which is called the Appropriation Act, then the recommendations of Parliament, they should be binding on the executive. They shouldn't be advisory. That's my interpretation. You know, there are various ways when the Parliament can sit, debate a matter and recommend to the executive. Those one can be advisory to government. But where it connects, it is emanating from an Appropriation Act. The recommendation made arising out of the Appropriation Act should be binding on the executive. So it's not a discussion to the Minister of Finance. Either take action on the recommendation or not take action. Because it loses meaning that Parliament recommends to the executive and they take no action. You understand? Because like there was a time when we recommended someone who was charged. You understand? Because under the public service standing orders,
I think that
someone's supposed to leave office when someone is charged. But someone remains in office, you even pass a budget for that person. So it doesn't add up. But because the commission is proved to be advisory to the executive, the Minister of Finance takes no action.
Honourable, doesn't that speak to what I talked about? That the recommendations, once they are made, there are no timelines. So they remain advisory. If they had timelines that you should report back the action that has been taken within 6 months, that somehow could be.
Actually, but for me the argument is that the recommendations of Parliament to executive are advisory in other nature. But those arising out of the Accountant General's report, my interpretation of the law is that they are binding on the executive. You understand? They cannot say that they will either see whether to implement or not to implement. Because they are arising out of the Appropriation Act, that we voted the money to a certain government sector to do an activity. It is not there. You understand? Like let's say Lugoa Hospital. Why should why should we allow? This is what my sister Winnie is talking about. That why should we involve them? Otajana has found there's no hospital. The money was taken. Why do we involve the citizen? Someone must refund the money. If the committee say refund them, then it should be refunded.
Thank you, Honourable, for your observations. Winfred, recently the Speaker, I think in a widely circulating video, it is reported that she was addressing a political gathering where she interestingly remarked that she had to clear her tribe mate. That's how she put it. It's rather crude, but that's how she put it. She said, I cleared my tribe mate who had certain audit queries, but simply because we were tribe mates, I considered it, rather prudent that I do it so that I let them go. So I want to ask the question. Now, this is a whole Speaker of Parliament, and I think at the time, she constituted the committee COSASE as a vice chairperson when it was being led by Honourable Katumbi.
Yes, she was the vice chair.
She was the vice chair. So this is a Speaker of Parliament now. Doesn't it then, cast doubt on the commitment of Parliament to actually adhere to these principles of accountability?
I will always say that our problems are the leaders. It is our problem. Of course, we see the hat she's wearing as a speaker and we judge her as a speaker, but that is her. What more best can we expect from her? That is her according to what she has shown us. First of all, I've seen in our country, there is no willingness. even all those things we are saying that people will be held accountable, if there was willingness. Because at the end of it all, when the reports are made, when the recommendations are made, who has the final say? If really, because if the president had the willingness to have all those recommendations, he's the executive. He leads the country. If he had the willingness to have everyone held accountable, full accountability, have the people who have it, let the people even pay the money. Yes, if he had that, we wouldn't have the problem. We are lacking the willingness from the people in the positions. People who have to influence the change, they are not willing. Many people, you see, PAC is supposed to be supported by Parliament. Yes? It must have full support of the Parliament. But the majority is from which party? Because some of the things, even PAC itself, where is the majority coming from? And this is a party that has shown us that most of the people in that party, who are the majority, lack the financial integrity. And how are they going to hold the people accountable? So, I'm not surprised for a speaker. I haven't yet seen that video. But personally, I'm not surprised. I am not surprised. Those are the kind of leaders we are having. They lack financial integrity. They have no behavior around finance. Like, they have no willingness for the country. Yes, they love the country, like they say from their heart. But what makes you love the citizens of Uganda? What makes me feel that the speaker really loves the country when she's getting involved in that? Yes, until we have leaders who are really intentional. We are lacking leaders who are intentional. If we love leaders, because most of them have gotten, first of all, members of parliaments are already in a privileged state. They earn salary. That time I was
fat salary.
A fat salary. I was surprised when they told me even here that the donation basket was increased. So they are privileged. Yes? And the worst thing a country can have is a greedy, privileged leader. And those are the majority we are having. That is when we have, like Honourable told us about all those recommendations they made, all those where they lacked. We will have those ones with passion. But even the passion will die because the majority is dead. But again, like how my brother was saying in the beginning, when he remarked that leaders have a problem, how it starts from down. But it's because the country, people are poor. People are sleeping without food. People lack medication. So people have nothing. And this is something created. That is why I'm saying the problem is at the head. There is no willingness to have positive change. We are having a smear. So I won't call it a smear campaign. But they have constantly smeared the picture that we are improving. Yes, the country is progressing, and we are seeing it. But the progress is benefiting who? It is benefiting the minorities, their next of kin, their families. And majority of citizens are not benefiting from that. Until when the willingness at the top really speaks to the need of the person, the least person down, not to the need of the people next to the top. That is when we can have a change. But the speaker, that was a statement, and good share to acknowledge such. For her, it is now in Uganda. Everything is normal. We have normalized corruption. We have normalized bad manners in parliament. We have normalized theft. We have normalized, so that is why they even speak about that in a casual way. Because as the city, it is okay for a citizen to suffer. That is why I've told you our major problem is we are having majority of privileged and greedy persons in positions of influence. That is why mothers are still going to be dying in hospital. There is no medication. How can you tell me that then we had a problem of medication when we had few women in parliament? We have women like Matembe, women like Honourable Honourable Matembe. You know those women, even late Cecilia, who fought hard to see that very many women come to the floor of parliament, to see that very many women be in position of what? Position of influence, and still there is no medication in hospitals. When people reach in those positions, and I don't even think that people just reach there and they change. People come with their bad manners. Yes, there are other influences. Very many women reach there and they are suppressed. That is also another issue. But again, if you're suppressed in that position, we have very many feminist organizations. Fall back to them. We have organizations that help to build capacity of women in political space. Talk about the issues. Go there. Seek support. I remember when one woman of parliament stood up and said, members of parliament, this member of parliament is sexually harassing me. You saw how many women stood up. But yes, we are speaking about women getting into those positions and they are suppressed. Have they come down to seek for help so that other women support that, so that we fight that? So let us not water down. I urge those women in there not to water down. Schools, everyone has passed schools. And majority of people, leave alone now that there are different avenues of going to good schools. Most people have come from afar, but they can't hold people accountable around school. But again, I'll still remain, and my conclusion will be until the executive feels for the down person. He will not stop on reading reports, reading like, okay, there is a slight change, people are changing. He will now go action. We need to see the action speak.
Thank you, Winfred, for sharing your views. Bayern, amidst the growing chorus of concerns and frustrations from the public, how do we navigate this complex and steep terrain of accountability in terms of solutions now?
Okay, thank you so much, Isaac. I think the first thing that would be the voters holding the voted accountable. I think for me, in a democracy as we are in, it would be the first thing that I advise as a recommendation, because if a person is implicated in corruption, they should be able to be voted out, because it's no longer about them. Ideally, in modern democracies, it would be about them, that if you're implicated or if you're in a scandal, you resign and then give space for others to continue with your duties. But just like my sister puts it, that the people that are stealing from us, that are stealing from public finance, do not even care about the public. So they will not care to even step aside. So the voters, now it comes back to the voters, that we should be able to vote them out. But also in that recommendation, there is a challenge whereby it's fairly put already by most panelists that the poverty levels in Uganda are low. So it's convenient for someone to steal public finance, take it to the electorates, hand them a little bit of incentives during the electoral period, and be able to come back to that parliament. But secondly, coming to recommendations, it's also one that is viable, as Honourable Paul put it, that the recommendations of these committees should have a binding nature. And I think in my first earlier submission, I forgot to talk about it, that you cannot have a parliament that has all these powers judiciously, because they can summon a witness, they can even order an arrest, they have a lot of powers in investigation. Now, you cannot hand over such power and then retain power of the end result. If you were going to, in our royaling, if you are going to file a court case, you would be looking at, is there a possibility of success? And then how do I get the fruits of judgment? Those are the two things you look at. Possibility of success and then fruits of judgment. So if you're giving all this power to investigate, invite witnesses. But then you're leaving out the implementation part. I think it is done just as a hoax, but not in good faith for accountability in such a democracy. They should be able to have power when they make recommendations to see that they follow them up and have avenues of how they are implemented. And of course, notwithstanding the earlier challenges of separation of powers that I talked about, because those challenges exist in most democracies. I mean, you saw what Right Honourable Nancy Pelosi was going through with His Excellency Donald Trump. So you will find that in most democracies, these, and I think even it was a legal philosopher that put it, that these organs of power will always fight for more space. Each of them will fight for more space. You'll find the judiciary fighting for more space. You will find the executive fighting for more space, and even the legislature. But then it comes back to how then are the recommendations of this PAC, which is arising out of such a democracy, such a challenging terrain of a democracy to operate, how are their recommendations going to be applicable? And that comes back to the recommendation that was earlier stated, that they should have a binding nature on Parliament and actually government as a whole. Because if I recommend that the IGG should investigate, I don't see how the executive should come and check that. It's the role of the IGG now to take up the investigation and reach a conclusion that they bring now to the public. But I think fair to say, and maybe to mention as I conclude, Winfred puts it right, that there is no willingness of leaders to fight corruption in Uganda. Because when we see all these that we are speaking about, and then we remember that just months ago, we had a person that we had investigated, we had actually convicted by court of law, and then the president hands over a presidential pardon, and that person was implicated in corruption of public finance, selling securities and bonds of NSSF, which was Mr. Chandi Jamwa. So you find that it brings you to a position of saying, are they willing to fight the issue, which is corruption that we are talking about? Is there leadership willingness? If we find that a speaker is lamenting about the same, and I think it goes back to my earlier point of quality of leaders that we bring in, and at all levels, let's not only look at them when they are coming into Parliament, let's look at her when she was getting into speakership, because these were acts that she had done when she was a member of the COSASI, a committee of Parliament. Now, if the public was vigilant enough, if our electorate in that position was vigilant enough, which were the MPs in the circumstances, if they were vigilant enough, they would be able to know what type of leader they are putting into to steer Parliament. And then you would have come up across that video, because it's a long-term video. It was issued, I think, before she even became speaker. I don't know. But you find that the willingness of the leaders is questionable in the question of corruption, and only because they are beneficiaries of the same. They are beneficiaries of the corruption. So if they do away with it, they will not get more finance to hand over to the electorate to come to the...
So corruption has become an ideology.
Absolutely. In my conclusion. Thank you.
Thank you, Bayern, for your perspective. Mr. Apollo, to conclude the program, I want to ask the question, even as we accelerate speedily by the day towards the conclusion of the current financial year, and as we look forward to the implementation of the new budget cycle, in terms of solutions, what is it that we can practically do to, align the accountability framework of the state?
Unfortunately, I find the solution, a distant dream, because I talked about the environment these audit entities operate in, and what we didn't actually highlight in this debate is that even the accountability committees of Parliament have been not once or twice highlighted in cases of corruption. I can recall towards the end of last year, even the Speaker of Parliament in a parliamentary session said that she has received reports that some committees of parliament are corrupt, are involved in corruption. We who report from parliament have witnessed some committees, committees where you can actually see that these decisions have been compromised. I mean, some witnesses have been let off the hook.
Where it's apparent.
When it is apparent that indeed from the queries you read and you see that they must have been guilty, but they are let off the hook and nothing. And the report is, Paul Mwiru has talked about it, where members fear the consequences of the decision they are going to make.
Really?
Members of the NRM mainly do fear to make to append their signatures on the committee reports, knowing that possibly the recommendations implicate maybe they are kingpins or their immediate relatives. So we cannot divorce the environment of corruption that is outside Parliament or even inside the Parliament from the committees. They are not insulated from what is happening around them. So I find the problem bigger than what we think, because to find a solution to this, you must have, like the gentleman said, members of Parliament on these committees who understand the task before them, who have the capabilities to undertake the tasks and process the audit queries and make appropriate recommendations. Like he said, some members are not fit to take on the task of processing those queries and audit reports. So another thing, we have a problem of a parliament that is dominated by one party. At least if we had a balanced parliament, you would think that on the committees, appointments of committees, you would have a fair balance of members that, like he said, if there is an issue that is really controversial and some members do not want to sign, then possibly if we have members of the opposition, in the context that they may be sane and ready to go by what is right, then you may get the signatures and do what and get the best out of those committees. So we have also that problem that on some committees you find there are only 2 members of the opposition or 3, then others are NRM. Then if the issue or the query is in their interest, that they should not maybe not antagonize the interest or go contradict the interests of the president, who is the chairman of the party, they will not append their signatures on that on the committee report. So we need that balance also on committees, that we have members of opposition who are a substantial number of members of opposition, and then they would counterbalance the result. So it's so complex, but we cannot lose hope. Let's continue to push on, to ask and seek for accountability from the leaders at all levels. Then possibly in future we'll get the best out of it.
Thank you, Mr. Apollo. I'm going to ask you to also share your closing remarks on the program.
I have to appreciate the time Civic Space gives us to share our views and opinions. And I must thank you, our moderator, thank the panel here, the colleagues here. And like I said, we cannot stop, we cannot lose hope. We need to continue pushing and pushing until we get the best in our country.
Indeed. Winfred, your closing remarks on the program.
Thank you so much. We are talking about corruption. First out, my remarks of closing remarks goes to the people in position in government, in ministries, in parliament. when you keep quiet, silence, to me, I believe, I say if someone keeps quiet about corruption, yet they have the power to influence, more power to influence than me, the citizen, they are also being corrupt. To everyone who is in parliament, who is a minister, and they are quiet, you're more even like those who are really engaged in corruption. So your silence is so loud, unless there's something that you're fueling corruption. So to me, everyone who is quiet, every member of parliament who is quiet, every minister who is quiet, every person who is in a position of influence and they are quiet about corruption, you're corrupt like the people who are corrupt. Please join other people who are trying to fight corruption. People elected you. You are voices, but you're not supposed to just be there and be quiet. And then to us, the citizens, let's not lose hope. Let's not lose hope. This is just part of the journey. We believe one day, and for the present, I believe things can get better. Things can get better. You can do better than what is it now, how you're doing it now around corruption. You can hold your immediate persons more accountable if really you need to. So that is all.
On the issue of the president, in one of the recommendations in the 6 billion handshake, the committee had recommended that the money should be refunded, the beneficiaries should refund the money. The president said he's going to refund the money. I am still waiting to know if the president refunded that 6 billion.
Indeed, it's a distant dream. Like Apollo referenced earlier. But yes, Honourable Mwiru, your closing remarks on the program.
Well, to me, I think as I said before, the public wants to know how much money has been recovered and who is in prison. However much people will be continuing to do some work, and those two issues don't come out, the public will think that actually there is maladministration. I thank you.
Thank you, Honourable, for your views. Bayern, your closing remarks on the program.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaac. I think for me, closing, I would want to appreciate every lady or gentleman that wakes up and says, I want to serve the country, and picks those nomination forms and goes into that parliament and starts waking up every day serving the country. And of course, not only members of parliament, but also any other person that is in public service. But on this specific question of accountability, on this specific question of corruption, we can do better. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Tuinamukama, Honourable Mwiru, Mrs. Mugambwa. Miss Mugambwa, and Mr. Apollo Tusiime, for joining us and for contributing to this topic, and also for the patriotic guidance that you've rendered to the citizenry out there. Once again, this is the Focus on Parliament show on Civic Space TV. We appreciate our viewers for keeping us company from the start up to the conclusion of the program. Many thanks to the production unit for keeping us live on air. And please, our dear viewers, engage us on our various social media platforms. We are on X, we are on Facebook, we are on Instagram, and feel free to subscribe to our YouTube channel, where you can also watch this program. We'll see you next time. Be blessed.